friends! Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Welcome to Seedling School office hours, where you can ask me questions that you may have about things. Welcome to the show. So if you're not familiar with Seedling School, this is something that I started Monday? Yesterday? Not very long ago. But the link is in the description, and essentially it's a front-end project for you, the viewer, to complete. And there is a full description of the project that you need to complete, and there are instructions on how you can participate. And if you would like to participate, you can open a pull request here with your project submission. And essentially, this is a time for you to ask questions either about the project itself or about particular technologies. So if you want to participate in this, but you have no idea what a web API is, you can ask that question. If you have no idea how to select an element on the page using DOM manipulation, or how to modify an element using DOM manipulation, you can ask that question. So if you go to qna.coding.garden, the link to that is also in the description. You can log in, ask a question, and I will attempt to answer it. Let's say hello to everyone. Hello, Ed. Welcome. I think you just stopped by, but welcome, Ed. Thank you for the kind words. Hello, Merchan. Hello, Heck. Hello, Daniel. Yes, you've made it to class. You're on time. Full marks, 5 stars. Hello, Mr. Moon. Hello, Ben. Hello, Andrew Lane. Hello, Boyan. Hello, Ben, again. Raymond says, just wanted to drop by and say I love the title of the stream. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yes, this is office hours. You can ask me pretty much anything you want. Questions that are related to the O1 front-end project will take precedence, but I'll most likely answer most questions. And thanks for the Twitch follow, No Muscles. Welcome. Hola, Shiny Coffin. Welcome. Ben is saying, can I use your API for videos on now.sh? Yeah, I don't see why not. I have it fully open. So if you go to coding.garden/videos, this is contacting an API that I made, which lists all the videos for my channel. That's literally all the API does, is list the videos for my channel. So if that's what you want from an API, yeah, feel free to use it. Hello, Akash. Hello, Greg. Hello, Meeper. Hello, Azerbaijan. Hello, Vladimir. Okay, so there are a few things that I do want to cover, and there are a few things that I definitely need to do. So right now on my to-do list for this project is to create a project rubric. The idea being this will be a very, very thorough checklist that I can use when reviewing a project submission. And then also, if I'm not available to review a project submission, you can use that rubric, that very thorough checklist, to gauge your own project and make sure that you've completed all the things that you need to complete. So I definitely want to create that. I potentially might want to create a short tutorial on how to create a Git repo. I'm assuming that most people that participate in this thing already know how to use GitHub, but I could talk about how to maybe not how to use GitHub or how to create your own repo, but maybe how to submit a project. I potentially want to talk about HTTP, so Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and how that relates to third-party web APIs. And yeah, so definitely those things, and possibly we could do like a short demonstration of make an API request and add the data to the DOM. It could be like a super short tutorial that just shows like the basics of that. And I guess even before that, I could even do a tutorial on how to turn a wireframe into a layout using a CSS framework. And also the goal of this, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the goal of this video that you're watching right now is I can do these short tutorials, edit them down, and make them separate videos. So let's catch up. Hello, Amado. Hello, Andrew. Welcome, welcome. Daniel says, I've been watching your VODs until now, and I'm finally caught up on your lives. So hello, welcome. Yep, so if you go to qa.coding.garden, that's where you can ask questions, and what's nice about this is other people can vote on them, so if there are a lot of questions, it'll be easier for me to choose which ones to answer first. Andrew is not a bot. Hello, No Muscles. This is not a course, no. So this, if you, on Twitch, there's a section called Show Notes, and there's a link to this GitHub repo. This GitHub repo I made on Monday, which is essentially, maybe it was it yesterday? It feels like so long ago, but I made this very recently. Well, I guess I did it yesterday. This was yesterday. But it's a GitHub repo that describes the requirements for a front-end project that you, the viewer, can complete. So this isn't a paid course. This isn't anything like that. Essentially, if you decide to do this project, which has some requirements, which are essentially building a front-end website that communicates with the third-party web API, if you are going to participate in that, you can ask questions regarding that project. That's pretty much what this stream is for. Andrew is saying, I'm sure a lot of people who will watch this in the future won't know how to use Git. It's so true. I mean, I could basically, I could use the requirements for this project, like if we look at goals, and I could do a lesson on every single one. But for now, I want to focus on things that people are having trouble with. I know there was a YouTube comment on, like, what is cores? And how to, I want to say get around it. I'll say work with it. Work within its constraints. And potentially, if there's anyone watching this stream right now that is completely new and would want to know how would I create a GitHub repo so that I could participate in this, I could do that as well. Cool. Yep, and Meeper has a good question. So ask your question on the Q&A site, Meeper. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Michael. And I will answer it, but it's a good question. Azerbaijan says, it's full stack. No, so this project actually is only front end. So the constraints are that you're building a purely front end website that talks to a third-party web API. And I have a list of some example APIs that you can talk to, and I have some links out to external resources that list a bunch of different APIs that you could potentially talk to. I specifically left backend, user login, databases, Firebase. I left that out of scope. I don't want that to be in this project because I want you to focus on front-end JavaScript and communicating with APIs. Yes. Hello, Vishnu from India. Welcome. Sacred Gaiman says, just stopping by to say hello. A little late for me here, but I'll be sure to check out the VOD. Thank you very much. I'll see you later. Have a good night. Akash is saying, have you tried Bootstrap Studio for developing a UI? I've heard of it, but I've never used it on a project, and I don't think I would know. I would. I don't think I would. I believe, you know what? I might have tried. I tried it once. It's basically like a drag and drop environment that generates Bootstrap layouts. It's pretty interesting. Hello, Morning Space, or Morning Sage. Sorry. Welcome. If you're watching this live, you most likely know what you're doing. If not, you might not. I don't know. Hello, Totally Sane. How do I code? We could start there. Like, what is JavaScript? What is all this? Merchan says it's. What did I do? Work within its. I don't know what you're trying to say, Merchan. My profanity filter thought something you said was a curse word, so I apologize about that. Ben is saying, I wish all my projects on work do have the same spec file as this project. Maybe I'd know what to do. That's funny. Yeah, and that's like, I mentioned this before, but that's kind of the goal of this. Like right now, I am actually reviewing the issues that people submit. I'm giving them feedback on their descriptions, and I'm here to help if you need help. But in the future, I may be so busy that I can't. And the idea is there will be enough resources that anyone could attempt to do this project and have enough resources and enough guidance to complete it on their own without me needing to provide feedback. Morning Sage says Git would be a great thing to have a lesson on. Okay, I think we'll consider it. And thanks for the follow, PD Raster. Welcome. He wants you to change its to its. Work within its? Yeah, you're right. It's not it is. Oh, no worries, Merchan. All right, let's look at the Q&A. Merchan says, can we use web scraping instead of an API? I feel like this is kind of out of the scope of this project, mainly because the requirements are that it's a 2-page website and it communicates with a third-party web API. So if you're doing web scraping, typically that's like a backend API. That said, there are some APIs or services that you could potentially pass a URL and it gives you back a somewhat parsed version of it. If that's what you mean, maybe you can expand on your question, Merchan. Okay, this question comes from Michael. How would we protect our API key to not expose it on the front end? Now, for this project, because you're not building a backend, you really can't. So in front-end code, there is no possible way to hide an API key. Because it's front-end code and it's going to load in the browser, your API key is going to be exposed. One way around that is to develop your own backend, which is essentially like a proxy server where your front end will make the request to your backend. Your backend has the API key hidden, and your backend is the one that makes the request out to those services. So this particular website, the Coding Garden Videos website, it has an API behind the scenes, which is hiding my YouTube API key, which makes the requests to YouTube. So if you look at the source of this web page, you're not going to see my API key because I wrote a separate API. Let's look at the source. We'll go to like videos and we can see it makes a request somewhere. Here. This is my custom API that I built, and it has one endpoint /videos. But when this front end makes a request to /videos, my back end makes a request to YouTube using the API key, and now it's hidden from the front end. So that's typically how you would do it. And actually, you can search for a video called this one, build a YouTube API proxy server. And in this video, I build this very website and basically show you how you would hide an API key on the backend. So that's the way to do it. I would say for this project, it's a little bit out of scope. You technically could do it, but it's a little bit out of scope. Okay, this question came from Raul a while ago, like several days ago, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it because it's a pretty good question. Somewhat unrelated, but it's a good question. So Raul says, you said you develop a lot of internal apps for clients at work. Is the deployment process the same versus external apps, hosting, servers, etc.? Ultimately, it depends, but for the most part, yes, it's very similar. So for a lot of client applications, we use AWS. We'll typically have like a development, a staging, and a production server. All of those are hosted on AWS. They have custom domains. And then we have a CI/CD pipeline through Travis CI to automatically deploy to those servers when things are merged and committed on GitHub. That said, some clients have their own infrastructure, which is like not AWS, and it's basically a server that they have on site that they own and maintain. And when that's the scenario, it's a little bit different because we have to go through them to get our code onto their servers. But for the most part, the applications we build are accessible on the web, but they're locked down with authentication and are really only accessible by the company itself. So yeah, good question. Pup time? Oh, Alcabot isn't here right now. Oh wow, Ben says they joined the core team of Invoice Ninja. It's a 5,000 open source project. Let's look for Invoice Ninja. I've never heard of it. A free open source invoicing and expenses thing. Huh. Very cool. Congrats, Ben. Weston says, do I have any videos on deploying with Docker? I'm trying to learn and having problems linking containers and knowing what to put on the env SQL variables. I don't have any videos on it. I've talked about doing it, but typically when you're linking containers, that's where Docker Compose comes into play. But yeah, I don't really have any resources on that right now. Hello, Mattia. Welcome. It's possible to scrape with fetch. I mean, if the website you're trying to make the request to sets access control allow origin star. Otherwise, you can't make any request from your website. But if that website allowed that, then yeah, you could definitely scrape it in the browser with fetch. Drinker time. Uptime. Hello, Master Agent Miyazaki. Yep, I kind of just started. Mattia says you should knock out these vids out. You should knock these vids out regardless. It's going to be beneficial to anyone in the future if you're up to it. You're absolutely right. I kind of just need to like prepare some outlines and make some videos. Yeah. Hello, Kixino. I just found your channel. Can I get a quick breakdown on what you're about? I'm all about being nice to the people in the chat. I'm all about sharing knowledge, and I mainly do full stack JavaScript. So if you go to youtube.com/codinggardenwithcj, you can see tons and tons of videos and live streams that I've done. Right now, something that I decided to start yesterday was this project called Seedling School. But basically, this first thing is just a front-end project. It's a description of a project with requirements for you, the viewer, to complete if you would like to. And it essentially could serve as like a portfolio piece or something like that. But it says, for your first project, you will build a front-end website with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and the website will communicate and integrate with the third-party web API. So yesterday, I did a live stream where I basically created this entire repo live. We came up with all the goals. We came up with what people are going to build. We came up with example project ideas. Came up with how to participate, links to different APIs that you could use, and people have started opening issues, and they're going to attempt to create this project, and then in about a week or two, we'll potentially review the projects that they create live on stream, so that will be fun. But yeah, on my channel, I talk about front-end JavaScript, back-end JavaScript, databases, coding. Every Wednesday, which is today, I usually do code katas, and you can see this playlist here. I've been doing it for a while now, where I solve code challenges live in front of you, and talk through my process and solve things in multiple different ways. So I guess that's what my channel is. I should come up with a better elevator pitch, but welcome, Kixino. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Joe Mama. And everyone likes to joke about TypeScript because I am not a TypeScript advocate. There's a time and a place for TypeScript, just not here, not on this stream. Merchan says, I was thinking of redesigning the front end of my school's online course system, which doesn't have any API, so the only way would be to scrape the data. So that's why I asked the question. But I guess if it's going to be a 2-page app that doesn't qualify, yeah. I mean, it's a cool project. I mean, feel free to do it, especially if you're passionate about it. But I would think that doesn't exactly apply to this. I mean, technically, you could build your own scraping API completely and totally separate. And once you have that scraping API up and ready, you could build a 2-page website using that API. I think that's totally valid. I'll go with that. Ben says, how can you live knowing app you use each stream has that ugly title? What ugly title? What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Ben? Thanks for the follow, Cult of the Dead Cow. Welcome. Dead beef? Is that what that's about? When will I do a TypeScript tutorial? I did one a long time ago when I talked about, here's the question from Andrew Lane. When will I do a TypeScript tutorial? If you go to coding.garden/videos and search for TypeScript, this was a very long time ago. This was maybe like the 4th or 5th live stream I ever did, but I gave an intro to TypeScript and built an Angular 5 application using TypeScript. So yeah. Maybe I'll do one again. I don't know. Good morning, Master Agent Miyazaki. Something went wrong here. Oh, yeah, so this was a combination of you trying to send a style tag, and you had an emote in there which got parsed automatically. But style tags are blocked because people were trying to like absolutely in fixed position elements and stuff like that. Sean says, I passionately hate the current system, so that's a good motivation for me. Very good. Oh, client v2. Oh, it's not deployed. It's running on localhost. I don't really care. Let's do this. Oh. There we go. Yeah, inline styles and style attributes are ignored. Yeah. Yeah, no style tags. Yeah, you can use SVG those if you want to do paste in something interesting. Yeah. It needs a space. You can never be happy. There you go. All right. Let me pick a tutorial for me to do, and I'll create like an outline. I kind of want to do. You know what? So and then the other thing is choosing an API, choosing a web API, and reading and understanding the documentation. I kind of want to do that too. Everyone's picking on CJ. It's fine. It's fine. No, this is fun. I kind of had a long day at work too. This was one of the first times in a while where I had to be at work all day because we had a company offsite. So, yes, it's fine. Thanks for supporting me. What did Ben say earlier? Oh, okay. Cool. All right. Which one should I do first? You know what? I kind of like this one. Let's turn a wireframe into a layout using a CSS framework. Let's do that one. And also like how to create a wireframe. So here's what we're going to do. Let's create a folder. Lessons. And in lessons, we'll say how to... No, we'll just call it wireframing. Mictor, wireframing. Yeah, company offsite. Sometimes it's team building. Mainly we were just talking about what are the goals of our company, what do we want to do going into the next quarter and the next year, that kind of thing. And it was offsite, so that way we could all focus and not be distracted by our work environment. Cool. All right, we're going to talk about wireframing. So let's come up with our objectives. We will define and describe wireframing. We will differentiate between wireframes, and mockups. We will create a few basic wireframes. No, we'll create a couple and then we'll implement at least one. Create a few basic wireframes. Create. We will, did I spell create wrong somewhere? I don't think I did. Implement a wireframed layout with a CSS framework. And when we get to that point, I'll let you vote on which CSS framework I use to implement it. Cool. Let's define and... Oh, before I wrote the objective? Okay. Let's pull up some resources on wireframing so I can point to them. It's a great question, Mattia. So when I say wires, I mean design, pretty much. So, and you might have heard the term mockup, but I like to differentiate between mockup and wireframe. And typically I use this website, wireframe.cc. And Figma is typically more of a higher level design tool because the designs that you're creating typically, well, actually, maybe I'm wrong on that, but mostly your designs already have color in them and they look closer to what they're going to look like when you actually implement them, whereas a wireframe is very high level and low fidelity. Okay, so you can do wires inside of Figma. That's good to know. Hello, J. Felly Webb. Welcome to the show. I didn't know that. That's pretty good. Spilling water everywhere. Okay. I think I'll have the Wikipedia page open. Let's say wireframes versus mockups. What's the best? Okay, J. Felly Webb says that you've used Figma. I guess I've never used Figma before. Is that the one that works in the browser? Were we using that for the Coding Garden community app? uizard.io. Speed up your workflow. Transform your hand-drawn wireframes into digital design files in front-end code automatically. No way! That's actually pretty sweet. That's insane, actually. Is it really like you literally draw a wireframe and then it turns it into like React code? Wow. Wow. Nice verbs. Thank you, Heck. Figma 100%. Maybe I could use Figma. Matthias saying they don't have presets, if that makes sense. You have to draw the boxes in low fidelity. Okay, that makes sense. It uses React and WebAssembly. Ben is saying, I went for electrical engineer in high school. Whenever someone mentions wires, I'm having flashbacks. Yeah, these are a different kind of wires. Is Figma web-based? Maybe I'll use Figma. Sign up. What kind of work do I do? Software development. I don't want to join the mailing list. An account with that email already exists. Okay, let's log in. Log in with Google. Hey! Okay, yeah, so this is what the Coding Garden community was using. All right, can I make a new one? Constraints. Set up precise constraints. You know what? This is too complicated. Like, it's cool. It's very cool, but this tool is extremely simple, and I'm going to stick with that for now, but I'll mention that there are other tools as well. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, and actually, if anyone wants to, Adobe X, yeah, let's do this. Let's go ahead and make a list of design tools, because we'll link to those as well. List tools that can be used to create wireframes. So one of them I'm going to mention is this super simple one, wireframe.cc. Come on. There's that Figma website. There's Adobe XD. Hello, Raul. I actually just answered your question. Maybe you can scroll back. But yeah, the question that you had on Q&A. Copy that. Yeah, I've used we use Balsamic at work actually. All right, I'll catch up on the chat, but in any other wireframing tools that other people use? InVision, yeah. So we also use InVision at work, but typically it's for creating mockups, like you just mentioned. So InVision can do the same. Take your hand drawing to make a simple interaction at mockup. Oh, I didn't know that. So you can draw it, and then it automatically creates it. InVision. Here it is. But typically with InVision, these are more of like mockups because they're much higher fidelity. Like they have color, they have interaction, different things like that. I'll still link to it. Yeah, I agree, Meritchan. Can't take this seriously because it looks like a smiley face. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Actually, I just want like a bunch of images of wireframes. Yeah. This is perfect. I'm just gonna keep this tab open. And then we'll show like mockups. Yeah, totally fine. I'm good enough with that. Okay. All right, who's ready for a lesson on wireframes? Are you ready? I'm ready. Hello, in this video we're going to talk about wireframing, and we are basically going to describe what it is, talk about some tools you can use to create wireframes, and then we're going to create some wireframes of our own and then implement them using a CSS framework. Alright, first up, define and describe wireframing. So I have here the Wikipedia page on website wireframing. I'm just going to read this to you. You can read it as well, but I'm going to read it. A website wireframe, also known as a page semantic or screen blueprint, is a visual guide that represents the skeletal framework of a website. Wireframes are created for the purpose of arranging elements to best accomplish a particular purpose. The purpose is usually being informed by a business objective and a creative idea. So I'm going to show some examples of wireframes here just to get an idea of what they are, but really they're all about a very high level view of the layout of your website. And typically they're very low fidelity in that it's really just boxes and lines. Often you have filler text. So we can see in this example of a wireframe, pretty much anytime you see a box with an X in it, that means that in the real design, there's going to be a picture here. And you can see a lot of this is just filler text. So it has like profile name will go here. Lorem ipsum, which is a type of filler text you'll often see in web design. And then you have paragraphs of text, which don't actually mean anything, but they basically give you an idea of what this page will look like when there is real content in there. We can see some of these other layouts as well. There's like an image here. We're showing the nav. We're showing that there's some drop downs. We're showing some cards. This is almost like a product layout. This is YouTube in wireframe format. The main idea with wireframes is that they're not high fidelity. You're not really showing the actual text or body copy that's going to be on the website. You're not showing the actual images that will be there. You're not showing the actual text. You're just really creating the layout and figuring out what the page will look like. So that's what wireframes are. You might also have heard of mockups. So this next objective is to differentiate between wireframes and mockups. A mockup is much higher fidelity, and it's much closer to what the actual website will look like. So if we take a look at some examples of mockups, typically they'll incorporate color. They'll talk about what the page will look like at different device sizes. Let's see. Let's just search for like UI mockup. Subtle. So you can see here, like, we know what the color of the buttons are going to be. There's actually some visual design in them. These are much higher fidelity, and typically they take a lot longer to create because you're really putting a lot of work into the design of the website rather than just the layout. So I think the main difference between wireframes and mockups are wireframes are really all about layout and finding the best layout before you spend a lot of time working on color and design. Cool. All right, let me catch up on the chat and then I'll do these next objectives. Yes. Aye, Captain. I can't hear you. I literally cannot hear you. You're welcome, Raw. J. Philly Webb says, I think Google has a Draw app in Google Drive. They do, yeah. And there's also like draw.io, which is very similar to the one on Google Drive. But technically, you could create wireframes here. Let's search for like window? Yeah. I could do something like that. I could draw boxes and say like the nav bar goes up here. Yeah, definitely. Use MS Paint for an extra challenge. I'm not going to do that. Meeper with the super chat. Let me read it. Thank you so much. MPP3RCLNX. I don't think I've ever said your name right, but thank you. That's awesome. Hello, future. Oh, I get it, because it was on the side. Oh, wow. Hello, Coding Hag. Welcome to the stream. Hello, JDS Cezanne. Welcome. Just be happy. It drives people crazy. No, I like to leave the chat open just so people know that this is live. And to not expect quality content because I'm not very prepared. It's okay for me to laugh. Oh, did all of that happen? I didn't even see it in the chat. You guys are great. Paul, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. That's pretty great, actually. You all should keep doing that. It's like some comic relief. Wireframes are like wires. It's a layout made of wires. Play the Google Draw game. I've never seen that game. Using only the pencil tool, create a mock. I could do it. Thanks for the $0, Andrew Lane. Much appreciated. Okay, so back to the lesson. So there are a lot of different tools you can use to create wireframes. There's wireframe.cc, which is what I'm going to use because it's really the simplest. And I'll show you why. But there are other tools like Figma, Adobe XD, Balsamiq, InVision. Mattia just mentioned use a piece of paper. Absolutely. You could literally just draw your wireframes on a piece of paper, draw them on a whiteboard. But I do like to use wireframe.cc. So I'll show you this website right quick. And it's super simple. When you go to it, you're just presented with a browser. You can also change what type of device you're designing for. Let's say you want to design for mobile. You could choose that and then design your layout based on that. I'm going to design for desktop. Cool. And then our next objective is to create a few basic wireframes. So I'm going to create one, and then we're going to attempt to implement it. And I think what I'll do is just a super basic landing page. So we want something like a nav bar with the title of the website. We'll have like a big hero section with maybe a tagline, and then a button that says like, click here to go to the app or something like that. So wireframe.cc is super easy because basically you just draw boxes. So I'm going to draw a horizontal box like that, and that represents my nav bar. I can choose, I want it to be a box. I'm going to add in some title text. It defaults to like some lorem ipsum, but I'm just going to say like app name. And then we can put it into the nav bar like that. And we can increase the font size if we want to. We're going to go about right there. Cool, I have a nav bar, very good. And now I'm going to create like a hero image, and that's just going to be, or like a hero section, and that's just one big box like right in the center, probably about like that. That's going to be a box. Let's say I want some actual text, so I'm going to use this paragraph tag because it'll, again, I don't have to come up with all the text right now, right? This is just a very, very quick way to design my layout without having to worry about what does the text actually say, and different things like that. Or I don't have to actually find images to place on the page. Let's do like title here, or let's say like tagline here. And I'm going to put that like right here. Yeah, it does show me where the center is. And we're going to increase that. Let's go to like that. Looks great. And then I think lastly, I want probably like a button. We'll make it a box. That's going to be like right in the center, right about there. Text goes there. And I'm going to have some text on the button that just says like go to app. Or I'll say like get started. Cool. We're going to put that right inside the button. Done. This is my wireframe. It's super basic, but it describes the layout of the web page and kind of shows where everything is going to be. So I have a nav bar at the top. It has the name of the app. I have the tagline. I have potentially like a description of my app or some body copy here. And then I have a button, which when clicked on will allow the user to go to the actual website. So this is my super basic layout. And now I can take this and actually implement it. So that's what we'll do next. 200 IQ, use a piece of paper. That was great. That was great timing too, Mattia. Quick draw with Google. What is that? Oh, I've seen this. Yeah. Draw a spreadsheet in under 20 seconds. Psh, I got this. We'll do like A. I'm also doing this left-handed, which is, I'm not left-handed.
Sorry, I couldn't get it.
But I've seen that before. You draw it and the AI tries to guess what it is. Yeah, make sure you give that piece of paper to the client. Real programmers use butterflies to draw their wireframes. Ah. That's a reference to that XKCD joke about real program. It was like they're talking about Vim, right? Or Emacs or whatever. Let's look at it. Nano, real programmers use Emacs. Hey, real programmers use Vim. Real programmers use Ed. And then, excuse me, but real programmers use butterflies. They open their hands and let the delicate wings flap once. The disturbance ripples outwards, changing the flow of the eddy currents in the upper atmosphere. They cause momentary pockets of high-pressure air to form, which acts as lenses that deflect incoming cosmic rays, focusing them to strike the drive platter and flip the desired bit. It's so true. That looks like a flat projected basketball. That was amazing for a non-dominant hand. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, let's do a quick vote. Which CSS framework should I use? Paul chooses Nano. I use Nano too. Like I don't even worry with Vim. I could use Vim, but I don't worry with Vim. Oh yeah, and on this repo I actually have a list of a bunch of CSS frameworks. Cool. So, there's not that many people in the chat. Just tell me right now, which CSS framework should I use to implement that layout? Should I use Bootstrap, Bulma, Materialize, Foundation, Pure CSS, Material Design Lite, Semantic UI, Base Guide, Simple, Skeleton, Turret, UI Kit, or something else? Let me know right now in the chat. Bootstrap from PDR, or PD Raston. And Bob says, I tried to tell the design lead on my web dev project at school to use wireframes to design the layout. He said they were hard to understand and too difficult to make. Also, I'm hounded for using Nano. You can't win them all, can you, Bob? Okay, we got 1 vote, 2 votes for Bootstrap, 2 votes for Materialize. Tailwind is not a CSS framework. It's more of a, it's like a utility library. You would basically have to write everything from scratch if you use Tailwind. It's not the same. I see 4 votes for Material. We're gonna do Materialize. I'll show you what I mean. Matt says Bootstrap. Oh, you know what? Okay, we're gonna do a straw poll. It's too many. We're gonna do a straw poll. Rodri says Material. Here we go. Bulma, Bootstrap, Materialize, CSS, Material Design Lite. What were some of the other ones? No framework. Well, I want to use a framework, specifically because this project does ask the student to use a framework. Pure CSS. Foundation. Skeleton. Do I have primer on there? What is primer? Oh, cool. Is it pretty easy to use in a just like a front-end website, or does it require a build process? Installation instructions. npm install. Okay, you can use it from a CDN. I'll put it on the list. Yeah, the main thing with this CSS framework is there should be no build process. It should be fairly easy to just add. Were there any other votes? Oh, nice pillow, Andrew. It was optional, but I just want to show how easy it would be to implement this this mockup using a CSS framework. We got several votes for Pure CSS. Material, do I have semantic? We'll add semantic. Though I don't know if you can add semantic UI from, oh, did I forget any? All right, that's all that's going to be there. Please vote now. Thanks for the follow, difficult news. But just real quick, while people are voting, I want to show you Tailwind CSS, because Tailwind is not a CSS framework like Bootstrap, right? It's literally a utility library. At least as far as I know. Let's see. Yeah, unlike many other CSS frameworks, Tailwind does not include components like button, card, or navbar. Tailwind is a CSS framework for implementing custom designs. Instead, you're encouraged to work utility first. So, like, if I wanted a button, I would have to add all of these CSS classes to get that nice blue button. Yeah, so it has no pre-built components. I want to work with something that has pre-built components. Oh, buddy. Here, I'll catch up on the chat. Yeah, Ben is saying for such a layout, and I'm gonna create like one more. Maybe it'll be a little bit more complicated. Maybe we'll do like a media item with like an image on the left, like a title and some text, something like that. We'll definitely do another one. Did I take a drink? How beautiful. Hello, Harsh. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, no tailwind. No framework. I'm gonna use one. That can definitely be a problem. If you're using certain CSS frameworks, it can get hard to read after a while. Every vote poll I participate in, it's a tie between Bootstrap and Materialize CSS. We need more votes. We need some tiebreakers. I mean, you can use a build process. I don't want to use a build process. Yeah, that pillow did look comfy. Thanks again for the follow. Difficult news. But yeah, so what is this? Great. Yeah, my personal website is down. I figured out it was down like a month ago, and I haven't tried to fix it, mainly because I'm not really looking for a job. So, but yeah, it is down. Cool. Cheyenne is saying, how often are you planning to give us a new project for the Seedling School? Probably another. There'll be another one in maybe a month or two. Mainly because I feel like I'm taking a lot of time tonight to even like create one tutorial, but I want to create a bunch of tutorials around all this stuff, like how to use a REST API tool like Postman, how to make an API request, and then figure out where your data is so that you can use it in the DOM. Different things like that. I want to create a bunch of tutorials. So pretty much I want to create a bunch of tutorials that would help a complete and total beginner get up to speed to complete a project like this. And then I'll potentially create another project, which will be a bit more advanced, and then again work backwards and try to figure out what lessons someone would need to get there. Maybe I'll do it with both. Yeah, I'm gonna do it with both Materialize and Bootstrap, and I'll do Materialize first. That's the plan. Let me keep catching up. Yeah, Mattia, you are a very real human. It doesn't want you to do the CAPTCHA. Vote for Bulma. I only voted for Material, so Bootstrap doesn't win. We're gonna use both. Okay. Cool. All right, are we ready? Send nice messages in the chat because this is going to be in the edited video. Demonstrate async and await. That's another good topic for a video for me to do. Cool. What are we doing? We're about to implement a wireframe. So here we go. All right, now that I've created a super basic wireframe, it has a navbar, a hero, a title, some text, and a button. I'm going to use a CSS framework to implement that, or this wireframe. So we did a poll and Materialize CSS, and it looks like Bootstrap's winning by 1 vote, but we're going to implement it with both Bootstrap and Materialize CSS. And we'll choose Bootstrap first because it has 15 votes. So here's what we'll do. I'm going to create a new file, just going to call it index.html. And actually, let's do this. Let's create a folder called wireframe 01. We'll call it 01 wireframe. Inside of there, we'll create our index.html. And I also want to save this image so I can just look at it locally. Is there a way to export? Yeah, I'm just going to I'm going to take a screenshot. Cool. Cool. So this is the wireframe we're going to implement. We're going to start off with a super basic HTML page. We'll just generate the HTML page. We'll give it a title, my website. And then the first step is to add the CSS framework. So first, we're going to try and use Bootstrap. So let's go to getbootstrap.com. And typically for a CSS framework, they have like a getting started section where you can add a CSS file to your page so that way you can use the CSS framework. So I'm just going to copy this CSS file and we're going to put it in the head right below the title. And you can see that this also says that you can add JavaScript. I don't need any of the JavaScript because I'm just going to be using some of the basic components. So now that I've added it to the page, I can take a look at their documentation and their components to see all of the things that it offers. So for my wireframe, I have this thing up at the top. That's typically called like a nav bar. And let's see if they have one. Yeah, so Bootstrap has a nav bar. And if I click on it, I can see some examples. And basically, a CSS framework will give you a bunch of different classes that you can just use and get some nicely styled things. So this code right here is what it takes to build that nav bar. I'm going to go with the super basic one. You can see it just has a name. And we have... I like this one. It's a little bit bolder because they added some extra classes to it, but let's do it. So let's grab that nav. And we're going to put that right in the body, right here. And instead of navbar, I'm going to look at my mockup, or my wireframe, and it just says app name. So that's what I'm going to put right there, app name. Cool. Now, in this folder, I'm just going to use light server, which is just a static auto-refreshing file server. And there we go. I have the beginnings of an application. It has a navbar there. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you can tell the difference between the two colors. Let's see if there are other potential colors we could use. Oh, I like this one. So navbar dark, BG dark. So if I do that, we'll get probably a black navbar. So instead of navbar light, BG light, I'll do navbar dark, BG dark. And if I look in the browser, ooh, we have a nice little navbar. Very cool. BG Dark, thank you. Give it to me, Meow. Given to Meow. Cool. So we have our navbar. Very good. Next, we need this thing. So there are a lot of ways we could go about this. Like if you look at Bootstrap, it has a card. So we could actually do just like a super basic card and add some elements inside of it. But there's also this thing called a hero. Let's see if I can find it. Hero? Jumbotron, that's what they call it. So in Bootstrap, they call it a Jumbotron. And this is kind of what I want, right? So if you look at my mock-up here, it's kind of like a Jumbotron. So I'm just going to take this div and put it in my page. I'm going to take a quick stretch. That's a good point, Mattia. I will mention it, and I'll actually show how easy it is to swap the styles on this thing. Let's see. So there's also the fluid Jumbotron. So to make the Jumbotron full width and without rounded corners, add the Jumbotron fluid. I don't think I want mine to be full width. So I'm going to take this just to see what it looks like, and I'm going to throw it right there. Let's see what happens. Look at that. It is full width. So what I kind of want to do is I want it to have space on the sides like it does in my wireframe. So I'm going to create a main element. And built into Bootstrap is this class called container. I just know that because I've used Bootstrap a lot, and you'll see that it pushes it in just a little bit. So that's pretty nice. If we search for container, we can see where it is in the doc. So it's under layout. And so basically you can give it an element a class of container, and it automatically gives it some nice padding on the side. So we pretty much have our layout. It's not too complicated. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my own text in here. And there are a bunch of different lorem ipsum type generators, and I'm going to use hipster ipsum. Hipsum. So basically what this site does is it will generate filler text using hipster words. So I want one paragraph of hipster text. Here we go. Slow carb, beard, master cleanse, occupy, cred, chillwave, post ironic. So I'm going to take that text and I'm going to put it in this paragraph tag here. Cool. Let's see what we get. Nice, very good. And if I look back at my wireframe, it actually had a lot less than this. I really only want like tagline here. So I'm going to get rid of this paragraph tag there, and I'm going to change this to say tagline here. And then our button should say get started. All right, what do we got? Not that. Beautiful. So this is my design implemented with Bootstrap. Now you can tell it's not exactly like the wireframe, right? The wireframe is very like low level, and there's some things that are different, right? There's like a space here in my wireframe. On this side, I don't have the space. I kind of like it without the space. On the wireframe, the button is centered. I guess technically I could center the button. Let's see. I'm going to look at Bootstrap and see if they have any like center, horizontal centering utilities. So if you give it class mx auto, style width. So yeah, I think I'll do this. I'll wrap that button in a div. And then that div has margin auto with 200 pixels wide, and that should center it. There we go. So we have a nice centered button. I guess technically we could center the tagline too, because in our wireframe, the tagline is centered. So if we search for center again, there's also like text center. Yeah, text alignment. And so Bootstrap has this text center class that we can add to the element, and it will automatically center it. So let's do that on the tagline. Andrew is saying, I don't need width for the bottom. I think I do, actually. So watch. Because by default, a div has display block, which is 100% width. And something with 100% width and margin auto has no margin on the side because it's taking up the full width. So the moment we give it a smaller width, it does that. Width auto, I don't think that will work either. Yeah, so this has to do with it being a block level element. Cool, but I think we're done with Bootstrap. We have our nav bar, we have that. Easy peasy. And that's basically how you would take a CSS framework and implement the design. Now, we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to do it with Materialize CSS instead. Cool. All right, I'll catch up on the chat, and then we'll get there. We need to use a real framework. What does real framework mean? He means he's afraid of utility classes. No, it doesn't. That's pretty good, Ben. That's classic. That's great. Cool. Nice messages. You can select multiple tabs in Chrome and then close with one Control-W. Did I close multiple tabs? I kind of wanted to leave those open for now anyway. Merchan says, I still can't believe it. Don't let your memes be dreams. You all are silly. You're so silly. Demonetized. Did I already? I think I already drank. That's a good point, Harsh. That should actually, I think that should work too, because this is an anchor tag, it's an inline element, and text center will center it. So if I could actually get rid of all of this. Actually, let's just do this. We have like an opening div, and if I say class equals text center, that should do it too. Cool. But I'm gonna leave it the way I had it because that would require editing, and I don't want to edit this video that much. Huh. Huh. I now proclaim CJ the house coding garden, first of his name, king of the YouTubes, and the first seedlings, protector of the JavaScript kingdoms. Thank you, Raoul. I appreciate it. And thanks again, given to Meow. Oh, give to Meow? Give to Meow. It's given. You have given. Given to Meow. Huh. Am I gonna... Oh, I should mention Bootswatch. I'll mention Bootstrap. The Sinister guy is saying, can you do backend development without learning HTML and CSS? Absolutely. Backend development is all about like architecting and designing a database, architecting and designing your service structure and how your services will communicate. And you can do all of that without building a user interface. Given to Meow. Okay, I'm going to catch up on the chat, and then I'm going to mention Bootswatch. Don't forget. Good evening, Majestic Eye. Welcome. Jumbotron. Thank you, JPelliWeb. I don't think I saw your message earlier. Hello, Shintan. I should probably make another div for the container. Yeah. Lipsum? Yeah, I think Carolina got caught up. We basically talked about what are wireframes. We made a basic wireframe, and then I showed how to implement that wireframe using Bootstrap. And we're going to implement that same wireframe using Materialize CSS next. So that's another interesting point. I could have technically just used, so built into VS Code, you can just type lorem, and you get some lorem text. But I wanted hipster ipsum. I wanted that. Slow carb, beard, master cleanse, occupy, cred, chill wave, post ironic. A premium website. Center the Jumbotron? It's pretty centered. It has like padding on the edges. Hello, Exenimus boy. Welcome. Deflex, justify content center. Yeah. Does the button overflow out of the surrounding div, or was 200 pixels just perfect? I think 200 pixels was more than the button, but that's a good point. Let's see. Yeah, so you see it was more than the button. So technically it's not in the direct center. So Harsh's suggestion to use text center was actually better. Yeah, because that's not the direct center. Yeah, I can, Ben. All right, we're gonna fix this design. Here we go. Okay, so I caught up on the chat, and there are a few suggestions. So Ben right now is suggesting adding some margin to the top of the Jumbotron, and that will actually get us closer to our wireframe. So we can see in our wireframe there's some space between the navbar and the box below it. So if we add some margin, it should push it down. So here's what we'll do on the Jumbotron. And actually, yeah, we can do it on the Jumbotron. We can do mt-2. So mt-2 is a class that's built into Bootstrap that will add margin top 2. So you can see there are utilities for layout. Let's see, margin and padding. We can look in spacing utilities. And basically you can do things like mt-1, mt-2, and we can see that brought it down a little bit. I'm gonna go mt-5. Whoa, like that. And so I like that. The other thing that was pointed out by Harsh is that our button isn't exactly centered. And we can see that when we go smaller. And what's happening is because we set that div to be 200 pixels, and then that has margin auto, technically the 200 pixel div is centered, but that's not the width of the button itself. A way to fix that is instead of doing like giving it an explicit style, we can actually just add the text center class to the div itself, because that will set text align center in the CSS, and because the anchor tag is just an inline element, it should center it, and then now that should be perfect center. Very good. Yeah, and this text isn't centered. We could center it. I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to leave it there. This is good enough for Bootstrap. One thing I also want to mention is there's this really cool tool or thing, library called Bootswatch, which basically has free themes for Bootstrap. So I can take a look at any one of these themes. Like, let's say we do Lux. And I can actually copy its CSS and then replace the Bootstrap CSS that I have. So if I comment out the Bootstrap CSS here and then link this, didn't copy it. Oh, I don't want to download it. Let's do this. Preview, Bootstrap min. Here, I'm just going to copy the link. There we go. So now all I've done is I'm referencing this Bootswatch CSS instead of the plain Bootstrap CSS. And now if we look at my website, I have a totally new style with a totally new text. So this is really cool to get some basic stylings that don't look exactly like Bootstrap. Let's try like a dark theme too. We could do like Cyborg. Let's copy it. And now if we do that, we should instantly get like a dark theme. Yeah, we instantly have a dark theme. So Bootswatch is pretty sweet. And if you're using Bootstrap, you could try that instead and you'll instantly get some cool themes. Cool. So next up, I'm going to implement this same design, but using Materialize CSS instead. Catch up on the chat. Hello, Sergio. Welcome to the stream. Yep, so I implemented a wireframe and now we are... No, I created a wireframe and now we're implementing it with CSS. Or, sorry, with a CSS framework. Hello, Emery. Welcome. Yeah, Morning Sage only does backend or prefers backend. Can you work on server-side rendered apps without learning HTML and CSS? Probably not. But if you're just building APIs or just managing databases, yes, absolutely. Yeah, Strix. I'm streaming on both, but unfortunately, because I'm streaming on both, I'm not allowed to enable ads on Twitch or subscriptions on Twitch or bits on Twitch. So I can stream on both, but I'm not making any money on Twitch. Yeah, and Majestic I say is saying the true power is creating both or knowing both, and that's kind of what I do. Is I am somewhat of a full stack developer. Oh, there's a question on Q&A. Let's check it out. Here it is from Raw. Let me catch up on the chat and then I'll get to the question. Thanks for the follow, Cookie. Welcome. Yeah, and thanks for the suggestion, Ben, and that was good. Yeah, revision, that's going to cost extra. Deflex justify content center? Text center is fine. How much HTML, CSS, and JavaScript do you think a beginner should remember before learning a framework? I think you should know the basics, because if you jump directly into a framework, it's going to be doing a lot of things that you may want to override, or you may run into an issue that you don't know how to fix because you don't know what's happening under the hood. So I think you should at least know the basics. Yeah. And thanks for the follow, Strix. Justify the text. You all are some picky product owners. You know that. You know what? The people with the star on their name are moderators in Electron, like on the thing on the right. Actually, well, yeah, I've integrated Firebase before. Bob says that looks good. I think maybe you're talking about the Lux theme. Yeah. Darkly is nice. Yeah, Bootswatch is sweet. There's also, if you're interested in Bulma, there's also Bulma Swatch, which is a similar thing, but for Bulma instead. Nice. Quick stretch. Oh, thank you, Majestic Eye. Majestic Eye says, I can't say this enough. If you're new to JavaScript, watch CJ's videos and Traversy Media. I've learned so much from both of them. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Ooh, server-side rendered view. That sounds fun. Can I make a PHP file that changes the Bootstrap style random on every load? We could do that with JavaScript, honestly. And yeah, so we could actually take JavaScript and swap out these based on like the user selected theme. Definitely. I'm pretty sure that Bulma was named after Dragon Ball. Yeah. And actually, I made this thing a long time ago. It's totally out of date now. And there might be something better. But I made Materialize themes, which is a similar thing, but for Materialize. Yeah, this is definitely way out of date. But what it allows you to do is pick your primary and secondary color, and then it will generate a Materialize CSS link that you can use that has a different primary and secondary color. Let's go like indigo and green. How does that look? It's okay. Yeah, but that's a similar thing. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I might do that. So, for this particular project that I have given to people, um, you'll most likely use promises, so like dot thens, and those are kind of like callbacks. But you could also possibly use async await. Hello, Cookie. Welcome. Yes, Brad is love. Yeah, I eventually want to integrate all of these applications into one nice little tab. Yeah, Academind is great as well. I think yeah, he recently released a JavaScript course. Thanks for the follow, Jillian. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm never gonna give you up either, Carolinda. All right, let's build this same thing but with Materialize. Cool. And let me get this all set up. Um, put that in the Bootstrap folder. Let's create a new folder called Materialize. New file, index.html. Cool. All right, there's a few chats. I'll catch up and then I'll try to do this tutorial all in one go. Thanks for the follow, Kappa Jones. And Mirchan says, when I first started watching CJ, I was not interested in web dev and only knew some basic HTML and CSS. Yeah, my initial impressions of Mirchan were that they were very good at mathematics and problem solving, because Mirchan used to tune into a lot of the Code Kata streams. But Mirchan says, now I'm confident that I can create any website I put my mind to. Definitely helped me a lot. I appreciate that, Mirchan. And thanks for the follow, lead game designer. Infinite sort. You all are too kind. Too kind. Yeah, start small, work your way up. Absolutely. Okay. So we did that. Let me see. Can I answer this question quickly? Hmm. Yeah, it's tricky. Okay, I'll answer this question from Raul because it's kind of uh, it's interesting. So Raul says, I started a business analyst job. Is there security concerns installing something like Python on a computer? I want to make a case to IT for it, since automation will make life easier for everyone and allow for pretty neat automation. However, the policy is against anything being installed. This brings back memories to one of the first jobs I had where you literally could not. The machines were Windows machines and they were extremely locked down. Um, Ultimately, any type of application is a risk. Any type of language runtime environment is a risk as well, because you could basically create any type of software. Um, as a software developer, I was allowed to run Visual Studio and I could create my own custom applications with C Sharp, but they had to add an exception in the virus scanner, because on a daily basis I'm creating new builds which create a new executable, which this virus scanner would say is like it doesn't know what it was. So that's the risk with some sort of language or runtime environment. You have the potential to create any type of program that could potentially be a malicious program. So that's maybe why they wouldn't want you to install something like that. Okay. Wallflower actually, while she says, do you recommend using Firebase for web apps, or do you recommend something else? I think Firebase is good for certain things. If you don't want to manage the deployment of a backend database and backend API server, if you don't want to manage coding that backend application, Firebase is a great way to go. I'll say that it's really easy to get Firebase wrong. It's really easy to create a database that doesn't have very secure rules and that could potentially cost you a lot of money. But at the same time, it's also possible to write good databases and have good security rules around your Firebase database. I would say if you haven't heard of them, definitely check out Fireship on YouTube. I think that's it. Yeah, this is them. They have a ton of videos on Firebase and how to write good Firebase security rules and how to structure your Firebase database and stuff like that. So you can check them out. Hello, Slinez. What's up? Welcome. Ben has a REPL link. What's REPL.co? Oh, it's from REPL it? Should I click this link? Let me know in the chat. Should I click that link? Emery is saying, merchant, never give up, bro. Very good. Very good. Very true. Machia has a good point. You probably should not put snakes in computers. Could always use Bash. It's probably a Windows machine, and if it is a Windows machine, they probably have PowerShell disabled. Yeah. Hello, Slinez. So I'm working on a few tutorials. At the beginning of the video, I just talked about like what wireframes are. We made this basic wireframe, and then I implemented that wireframe using Bootstrap. Now I'm going to implement the same wireframe using Materialize. That's what we're working on. Pick says if there's something to run it like Python, then someone can definitely run their own program on it. Yeah, and that's the risk. Like you could get some malicious program on there. Majestic Eye is saying, I will say this, the one thing that bugs me the most about coding is frameworks completely changing their structure with the new release. Watching a tutorial to learn from 2 months ago, and it's no longer valid because the entire framework has changed. Yeah, that happened with Angular. They should have just changed the name, but that happens, and it's not fun. Yeah. I guess VBA it is then. Yeah. And I guess that's the interesting thing because yeah, if you have Microsoft Office installed, you probably can create custom plugins for it without really needing anything extra installed, I think, unless they have it disabled. But yeah. Morning Sage says our computers scan memory and would constantly corrupt Visual Studio. Then I'd have to restart the AD. Yep. Yeah, Pick is saying implement multi-tenancy in Firebase and let us know if Firebase is good or not. Like I said, it's possible, but it becomes very difficult fairly quickly, and especially locking down the database that is multi-tenant. You might actually end up having a separate database for every tenant, which is not ideal. YOLO. Carolyn just says, Professor, what will our next lecture be on? Will we have something about Ajax and API related? Absolutely. So I'm going to be streaming for another 40 minutes. I'll finish this Materialize tutorial, and then I'll do a basic tutorial on making an API request, getting the data, and then adding it to the page. That's what I will do. How come you're using Flutter at a job and not React Native since you're a React shop? Mainly, Professor Garden. That's pretty good. We have done a lot of apps with React Native, but we have some clients that requested Flutter, and so we've decided to up our skills in Flutter and somewhat specialize in it. Also, we have native mobile developers. So we have native Android developers and native iOS developers that work at my company, and something like Flutter is a bit more attractive than something like React Native, which still has like a JavaScript bridge, whereas Flutter gets compiled to native code. Yeah. VBA sucks though. Yeah, I agree. My thoughts on Tailwind. Tailwind is very cool. It's a very interesting approach to like a CSS utility thing, but it's very different from CSS frameworks that have like entire components that you can use. Yeah. All with elegant error handling for that API call, right? Yeah, of course. Professor Sprout, but it's taken. Okay. All right, here we go. Are you ready, everyone? Coding app with extensions and plugins like VS Code. Oh yeah, I don't know. Wait, could anyone point me in the right direction in terms of coding an app with extensions/plugins like VS Code? Can't seem to figure out how it's done. Oh, I see. So you want to create an application where other people could create extensions and plugins that go into your application. I see. It's not an easy problem to solve, but VS Code and Atom are both open source, so you could actually look at their source code to see how they do it. I'll say that. Yeah. There's nothing elegant about my error handling. My error handling needs error handling. All right, let's get into this. And remember, send nice messages in the chat because that is going to be in the background. All right, so we implemented that wireframe using Bootstrap. Now we're going to try to do the same thing using Materialize. And it should be noted that you typically don't want to mix these CSS frameworks. So if you're going to use a CSS framework, you should just choose one and stick to that one. I'm about to create a totally separate HTML file. I'll add Materialize to it, and then we'll use Materialize there. But note that I'm not mixing Bootstrap and Materialize. All right, so let's click Get Started. We can see that very similar to Bootstrap, they have a CDN here. So I'm going to grab this link. And again, I don't need the JavaScript. You'll see in the documentation certain components require the JavaScript, but I'm not going to be using any of those components. So right now I just need that. So right now I am in a folder called Materialize with a brand new HTML file. It's totally separate and different from the one that I used Bootstrap with. So we'll create a page here. We'll call it my website. And then I'll add that Materialize link in the head. There we go. So first thing we need is a nav bar. Let's look at components. And I don't see it. Let's look at CSS. Get started. Components. Oh, there it is, nav bar. Hey, okay, I found it. So you can see that this is a nav bar, but it looks totally different from Bootstrap. This actually implements what's known as material design. So let's grab one of these. I want it to be pretty basic. We could probably grab this first one and then just leave off the links, so that way we just have like the name or the logo. So let's do it. So we're gonna grab that nav. I'm gonna put it in my body. I'm going to remove these links because I really just want it to say, what do I want it to say? Let's look at my wireframe. App name. Cool. All right, so I'm going to kill this, and then I'm going to go into the Materialize folder, and then I'll start up the server there, the static file server. And there we go. We have a super basic Materialize application with our nav bar at the top. Very good. So if we look back at our wireframe, the next thing we need is like this Jumbotron hero. I actually don't know if we're going to be able to find something like that in Materialize, so we may end up creating like a card. We might create a card that's like centered on the page that has the info that we want and need. I don't know, anyone in the chat, if you've used Materialize before, what might we use for this thing? Do they have a hero? Do they have a Jumbotron? Let's see. And we can also see on their showcase, these are websites that other people have built with Materialize. Let's see. You can buy themes for it. We don't want to do that. Let's take a quick stretch. Yeah, I think I'm just going to go with a card. So if I go to components and I go to cards, I want like a super basic card. They have a section class? Let's see. You all are so silly. All right, I'm just going to use a card. I don't see anything. So I searched through the docs. I don't really see a Jumbotron or a hero or anything like that. So I'm just going to use a card and try to style it myself. So I'm going to take what they have right here and just see what it see what we get with it. So very similar to how I did it with Bootstrap, I'm going to create a main element, and we're going to put that card right inside of there. And let's see what we get. Okay, so we get a card that's off to the left. Now we can look at these classes that it's using. So both of these frameworks have what's known as a grid system, and we can see that this has a column. It should take up 12 columns on a small device and 6 columns on a medium device. I kind of want it to always take up like 8 columns. So I think I can do S8. Let's see what that will do. Yeah, that's a pretty good width. And then if I can somehow get this in the center, I think it's what we would want and need. So if we go to CSS and then grid, let's see what we can get. So they have a way of doing like offset, which would allow me to essentially center that. Let's see. Yeah, so offset S6. So that offsets it by 6 columns, and this is a 12 column layout. So 12 minus 8 is 4. And so if I offset it by 2, then it should be 2 from the left and should put it in the center. Cool. And it's always this tiny little card. Very good. Nadrabas is saying you can use a card panel. What is a card panel? Card dash panel? Oh, cool. Yeah. So that way it doesn't have all the buttons and stuff like that. I think I like that. So for a simpler card with less markup, let's do it. So suggested by Nadarabas in the chat is on this card, instead of doing just a plain old card, we could actually do a card dash panel, and then we get just a very simple box instead of having all the extra buttons and stuff like that. So we're going to say card dash panel, and then we can pretty much get rid of all of this, and we'll just have like our header text inside of it and our button and description and all that good stuff inside of it. So what should this give us? This gives us like a basic card. And let's get some Chuck Norris Ipsum. Is that a thing? Yeah, Chuck Norris Facts Ipsum Generator. There we go. So we just want some basic text. I'm going to create a paragraph tag. That's going to be the text that goes there. Very good. We can see that it's black. I actually want it to be white because it's on this darker background. And let's see in CSS if we can specify color. Yeah. Text color? Oh, here we go. Blue dash text. So I'll probably just do like white dash text on this p tag, and it should turn it white. I have to say class equals that. And there we go. We have some white text. Now I want that tagline, which will be like centered. Let's look at their typography. Yeah, so I probably want like a heading 2. Yeah, so they provide basic styling on header tags. So yeah, I think we'll just add in an H2. We'll do, well, technically it should be like an H1. We're going to do an H3 that says, what should it say? Tagline here. Very good. I think similarly, I'm going to make this have white text. So I think what I'll do is if I just set the entire card to have white text, then all of the elements should have white text as well. So let's save that. Cool. And then I want to center it. So let's see if they have any classes for centering. Let's look at like helpers, text align. Here we go. So I can add the center align class. and that should center the text. So I want to center align this H3, so I'm going to add a class to it. And there we go. And the last thing we need is that button at the bottom. So let's look at what buttons we have for Materialize. We're going to go to Components, Buttons, and yeah, I pretty much just want this button here. And I think what I'll do is I'll create a div. I'll give that div a class of center align. And inside of the div, we'll have the button, and it will say get started. See what we got. Awesome, we have it. So this was our basic wireframe implemented using Materialize instead of Bootstrap. So as you can see, it's really just a matter of looking through the docs, finding the components that you would need, grabbing the different class names that you can use on those elements to get the layout that you would want. Great. So let's look back at our objectives. Cool. So we defined and described wireframing. We differentiated between wireframes and mockups. We listed a bunch of different tools that could be used for wireframes. We created a very basic wireframe, and then we implemented that wireframe layout with a CSS framework. So hopefully this helps you in your journey to create layouts and build websites. I'll see you in the next video. All right, let's catch up. Yeah, and so I'll be here for roughly 30 minutes more, and we'll do a video on making API requests. Can someone give me a suggestion for an API for us to get data from? And Carolinda, because you asked about help with API requests, do you have a suggestion for an API we can talk to? Yeah. Come on, Bob. Did that show up in the video? Did that show up in the video? You guys are great. What's up, Natarabas? Yeah. Love and peace. Thanks, Mattia. I should take a drink of water. Use the dogs API? Okay. All right, we're going to do another straw poll, though. So I'm going to make these API requests, and I'm going to add the data to the page, but I'm going to be using, I want to use a different CSS framework that's not Bootstrap or Materialize. So I'm going to create a new poll. I mean, I haven't really used a lot of these. So I have no idea if we're going to, how it'll, I mean, Bulma is probably the one that I've used the most out of the rest of these that are listed. Cool. All right, so we're going to do another poll. Please vote now. This is for which CSS framework I should use when I'm adding the data to the page with whatever API that we talk to. Cool. Giorgio Adelio is saying, just your honest opinion about jQuery in comparison with all these JS framework universe. So I really preferred to build front-end applications using some sort of state management pattern in some sort of way to render that state into a UI. And you can do that with Vue, you can do that with React, you can do that with all of these front-end frameworks. To me, it's a much cleaner way of building an application, and it results in potentially less spaghetti code. You can definitely still have spaghetti code in a React app or a Vue app, but there's less potential for it because those frameworks have a more of a declarative approach to programming versus an imperative approach, which is what jQuery is, because jQuery says select this element, set its text to be this, hide this element, show this element. You basically are telling the DOM exactly what to do, whereas these front-end frameworks kind of flip the problem on its head and say, you're not going to tell me exactly what to do. You're just going to change some data and the UI automatically updates. So I prefer these front-end frameworks. That said, you can write good jQuery code. You can write good applications with jQuery, but I prefer the more modern approach. Pink and green. Yeah, it's totally ugly, isn't it? Should I change the colors? Let me change the colors. I didn't even think about it. It's ugly. It's ugly. All right. What color will our nav bar be? Let's go for purple darken 4. Ooh, nice. And then let me see if I can find Materialize color picker. Like I want to find a complementary color to dark purple. No, the palette generator, that's the one. So, wait, what did I choose? Choose, okay, we'll do deep purple and what if we did blue gray and amber? Yeah, blue gray and amber. So if we look at colors, is there a blue gray? Hmm. 455 A64. Yeah, so blue gray darken 2. I'm gonna do that for my nav bar. Cool. And then the box is going to be yellow. Oh, no, that's ugly too. I mean, honestly, the box should just be like white, right? What if I did blue, gray, and gray? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to put it back. I'm already getting tired. Okay. I'm going to leave that the way it is. That tutorial is done and fine. I don't want to worry about that. Thanks for the follow, Georgia Delio. Never forget the tractor emoji. Merit Chan was there. Merit Chan was there for the tractor emoji. Yeah. For work, I actually just use a like a Bluetooth Mac keyboard. It's nothing special. Cool. Card panel. Yeah, the card panel was a good idea. Yeah, those colors are very ugly. You're very right. Frosty is asking, Material UI is the kind of the same as Materialize? In a way, yeah. So Materialize is purely a CSS framework. I mean, I guess they do have some JavaScript for components that are things like collapsibles like this, but for the most part, it's a CSS framework. And they implement the material design specification. So material design is a thing by Google. So Google created material design, and it's really just design guidelines, and there's a ton of different implementations. Materialize CSS is one one implementation of it, and then Material UI is a material design implementation with a React component library. So not only do you get the styles, but you also get React components that you can import into your application. Come on. This was happening the other day. Yeah, I tried to click components and it was broke. But so Material UI gives you these components you can import, like button, and you import that from the Material UI library, and then you get a styled material design button. So you could think of Material UI as like they wrote all of the styles, but they also created React components, whereas Materialize CSS is just the CSS that you can add like classes to your elements. Yeah. Yes. Did anyone here see when I did the Throwback Thursday and I used Dreamweaver? If you go to coding.garden/videos, and then search for Throwback, yeah. So I recreated Tom's MySpace page on Windows XP using Dreamweaver. This was a few months ago. Yeah. It was pretty painful. I didn't really have any like autocomplete or snippets or anything like that, but yeah, it was fun. You'll probably hate that I just like it was basically I was using Dreamweaver, but it was almost like I was just using a text editor because there was like no help at all for the elements I was creating and stuff like that. Yeah. You all are talking too much. It's okay, but I have a lot of chats to catch up on, and I need to make an API request. Yeah. Anyone remember when CI/CD was FileZilla? Yeah. Ship it. Hello, Dana Chu. Welcome to the chat. I'm 10 minutes behind. I don't know if you're still here, but welcome. Was Materialize always this ugly? I think their default color choices are just ugly. That's it. Yeah. Ben did it in 10 lines with Tailwind. Okay. Still, I can't just copy and paste it from the docs like you can with these other things. So, great job, Ben. Dad jokes. JSON. Okay, yeah. So these are ideas for what API I should use. Let me create a new folder. Drink reminder? How is that illegal? Yeah. That was 10 minutes ago, Dana Chu, but I'm about to do API requests. Yeah, we'll try the dogs API maybe. Josh suggested that too. Cool. JSON placeholder. I want it to be more interesting than just like JSON placeholder, because that's like it's just like to-dos and posts and stuff like that. Foundation? Oh, that was for the thing. The earthquake warning API, says Campbell. I think we'll vote on which API I use as well. Quote garden API. Is this a real thing? Hello, Justin. Is this a real thing? Quote garden, a REST API for quotes. Whoa, that's super relevant because this is the coding garden. Cool. How is that poll doing, by the way? Not that. Not that. I don't even know where that is. Here we go. Okay, looks like we're gonna use Bulma. Okay, it's good to know, Carolinda. Pure CSS with live share. The Star Wars API is cool too. Is Bulma created by Vue.js developers? I mean, there might be some developers on the core team that also contribute to it, but it is a totally separate library. Yeah, so there's Bulma. This guy here actually teaches on Vue Mastery. So if you've ever been to viewmastery.com, they have a bunch of videos on learning Vue, and he's in some of them. So that may be where you've seen that before. And there's also this thing called Bufi, which is Bulma Vue components. So they actually give you things like b-button to create buttons with Vue.js. I don't know about pure CSS. It looks like we're going to use Bulma. Yeah, I guess I could have used a P. I do not play League of Legends. Oh, yeah, that'll be a fun one, Carolinda. I won't still, like, I don't want to create something that you're going to do exactly, so it'll be good if I choose something else. I have no idea. Oh, no, Pure CSS is a framework, yeah. There's one called Pure CSS. Whatever looks interesting, I guess. But I think Bulma won. Yeah. Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? I think so. Material palette, blue, gray, and light green. I mean, that's kind of ugly. The green is like very close to the gray. Narodabas changed their name. My chat manager caches your name though. Oh, Nadir. Nadir. What's up, Nadir? Yeah, it was hard because it was all one word, but yeah, I'll call you Nadir. What's up? Is there a reason why so many developers use hex or RGB over HSL? Probably just habit, because HSL is pretty sweet. We don't really use any CSS frameworks, but we do use Material UI because we do a lot of React development at my work. And the majority of the time we're using the Material UI component library. Nadir. Dreamweaver. Nadir, yeah. What do I do at my job? What's my routine? I typically like to work from home. I will wake up around 8 or 9. I'll check emails. I'll pull some tickets or tasks from Jira. I'll work on them for a few hours. I'll eat some lunch. I'll come back, catch up on emails, work for a couple hours, catch up on emails, and then go home. Yeah. From Pakistan. Oh, okay. Use the dog API. Okay, we're gonna vote on it, but those were good suggestions. GoTo is saying randomuser.me. Yeah, and any other suggestions for potential APIs that I can make requests to and add stuff to the page for. Random user might be fun. We could add like a bunch of user avatars. Yeah. Ben is saying, can you show us the proper way to organize an Express/Feathers app for long-term support? I come from the PHP world, and Express by default is kind of messy. Yeah, I mean, there is the Feathers CLI, which is supposed to help you with that, but yeah, maybe eventually. I can try to do something around that. I've done a little bit of .NET Core, not a ton, but just a little bit. Yeah. Do you read docs? I can't. I read the docs. The cat API. Let's check it out. Cats as a service. Cool. GoTo says that's exactly how I work, but I have to be at the office. Yeah. We need to use that dog API. See you later, given to meow. Thanks for tuning in. The Chuck Norris. Is there a Chuck Norris API? Chuck Norris Jokes API. Sweet. Okay. I wonder. Can I just copy and paste this into straw poll, and will it automatically create multiple options? Let's try it. Nope. Gotta do it one at a time. What API should I contact? So we have JSON placeholder. We have the dog API. We have the USGS earthquake warning API. We have quote garden. We have the Star Wars API. We have random user API. The cat API. And Chuck Norris jokes API. Oh. Come on! I accidentally clicked enter. Oh no! I gotta type it all over again. Oh man. There's gotta be a better way. Just skip Chuck. I feel like that's gonna be a pretty popular one. I didn't wanna skip it. It's destiny. Okay. A title is required. And I'm already I'm almost over time, so this is gonna be a quick one, a super quick one. Okay, yeah, that's the poll. Let me share it. Cool. Morning Sage uses .NET Core. That's cool. Enable Force Dark. I don't really like Chrome flags, but that's good to know. Huh. Why are you guys obsessed with Chuck Norris? Dogs. Yeah, you don't use Chuck's API. Chuck's API uses you. Umar is saying, happy for all your new subs. Building a React.js web app for senior design for private tutoring. Ah, very cool. It's destiny. I am tired. I should go. Hello, Vitor, who says, is there a way to compile a Svelte component to a web component and still using that page's CSS? Can I bypass the shadow DOM? I don't have that much experience with Svelte, but I know you can set global styles, and as long as there aren't any classes with the same name defined in that component, you can still style your components. Yeah, we've all been there. Vote Earthquake API. Yeah, I gotta go very soon. Thanks for the follow, Nick PC. And I'm ignoring the Q&A website. Yeah, let's see. Nadir is asking, Feathers OAuth goes to the provider page, and then upon successful validation, it redirects back to HTTPS 0.0.0. Do you know why? This comes from the combination of your host value, and I guess that's pretty much it. So if you look in your config.json, you want to make sure that your host value says localhost, and it isn't something like HTTPS or anything like that. That said, if this is in production and that's what it's redirecting to, then you actually do need to override the URL in the production.json. And you'll see that in the production.json, it might say like feathersjs.com or something like that. And you need to overwrite that with the deployed domain. So that should help. I am using Mac OS X, not the latest one, the one before the latest one. I am from all over. Thanks for asking. I've made a few Vue.js tutorials. If you go to coding.garden/videos, and then click on Vue, you can see a bunch of videos that I've done with Vue. Some of the earlier ones are things like intro or like Vue.js Appstravaganza. I built a bunch of different Vue apps. build a to-do app, build a calculator. There's like the Newbie Tuesdays and stuff like that. So you can check those out. How many people have voted? There's 20 votes. We're gonna. it's it's very close between the Dog API and the Chuck Norris API. Svelte overview. I like Vue. Svelte is pretty cool though. I'll say that. This is true. Thank you, Mattia. Yeah. Yeah, that's a potential topic for a future video, but that's a lot, and that would be a very large Express code base to maintain. Um, I want to do that eventually, Sigurd, where maybe you can do like exclamation mark Q, and then that question automatically goes over here to the Q&A. But that's not there yet. But I would like to. Hello, Alex. What's up? All right, who's the winner? It's the Dog API. We're gonna go with that. Dog.ceo. The internet's biggest collection of open source dog pictures. Okay, we have a breeds list. Can I just request that? Breeds? Documentation. Here we go. List all breeds. I see. Here we go. List all. Okay, so you can list breeds, and then browse the breed. No. I can get an image by breed. Ah, very good. So I think I'll do this. So we'll make a page where we list all of the breeds. You then click on a breed, and we will then list a bunch of images for that specific breed. I think that's what we're gonna do. Though I kind of want to go. I've been streaming for a long time. All right, I'm gonna do it. Is it possible to use two APIs in the project? Yeah, you're absolutely allowed to. You can use more than one. Yeah, the dog won. React or Angular or Vue? I vote Vue. Dog CEO. Okay, yeah, we're gonna do that. I'm gonna take a quick break. When I come back, 15-minute video. Make an API request, add the data to the page. It's gonna be great. All right. I'll be back in 5 to 10 minutes, but I'm gonna enable the drop game, and I'm gonna drink water while I'm away. But I'll be right back. Hello, friends. I'm back. um, let's see if there's anything interesting that happened while I was away. Svelte. I drank water while I was gone. Yeah. See you later, Ben. Thanks for tuning in. Shout. Thanks for the follow, King Soul. What did Dana? Let me see what Dana Chu got. 86.75. Great work. Great work. I'll let these drops happen. Yeah, Daniel has mod cheats. It's not true. um, yeah, it really does require zero skill. Dinesh on the leaderboard with the 77.83. Great job, Dinesh. Thanks for the follow. Comatose Pirate. Comatose Pirate. Hello, Dinesh. Preference on Scrum versus Kanban. It really varies by project. I was about to turn the drop game off. This might be a good one, Daniel. Ooh, no, didn't make it. So it really depends on the project. So Scrum is really good if you have a team and you want to deliver on regular intervals. So basically you have sprints and you can say every 2 weeks we're going to deliver what we have, we're going to evaluate how we did, and then we're going to do another 2-week iteration or 2-week sprint. Kanban is all about managing work in progress, and you don't usually have sprints with Kanban. So I've worked on projects that have done both, and it really varies by type of project. So the projects I was on when we used Kanban were like research projects. So there wasn't really any end goal. We were just trying a lot of different things and seeing what we could do. So that's why we use Kanban. And then Scrum is really for like if you're trying to deliver something. Yeah. Well, I go over cores in the next video. I might have to cover it in this video, but I'm only going to stream for like 15 minutes more. So I need to get going. I'm a software developer for a living. All right, here we go. We need to create some objectives. We are going to use the dog API. So this is make an API request with no intro to APIs with JavaScript. Cool. First objective, we will set up the client. It's gonna happen. 15 minutes, I swear. Set up the client. We will then make an API request with JavaScript. We will then determine how to get the data from the response. We will then add the data from the response to the page. These are our goals. A dog with a blog. There we go. And I don't want to complicate this by making 2 API requests. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a random image. I'm going to create a button where if the user clicks it, it will give them a random dog image from this URL. That's what I'm going to do. Display multiple random images. Huh. Should I do one or multiple? Right now. We don't have time. Tell me. I know there's a delay. One dog or multiple dogs? Random dogs. Multiple. All right. We'll use this URL. We'll grab 3 dogs. That'll be cool because we'll iterate over an array. I like it rather than just like accessing a property. Cool. Cool. Let me close all these extra tabs. And I believe, yeah, we're going to use Bulma for this, so I'll get that ready. Bluma? Bulma. Yeah, I think multiple is the way to go because I can show iterating over the array and adding multiple things to the page. Cool. Overview? CSS. Cool. All right, let's catch up, and then we're gonna do it. I swear, we're gonna do it. Umar says, can I save the Scrum speech for my teammates? They seem to forget the duration of our sprints. Yeah, basically, if you don't do 2-week iterations or 2-week sprints, you're not doing Scrum. You're missing out on all the benefits of Scrum. Yeah, plain and simple. I like to call myself a software developer because I build custom solutions, custom applications for people that need it. It tends to be web applications, that the things that we're building for them, but I write software. Dinesh says, I'm an instructor. I have a trouble with problem solving skill. How can I improve? It really just comes down to practice, and I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer than that because I got to get going. Multiple. Here we go. Okay. Oh, and remember, send nice chat messages. Try not to have too many side conversations, and ask any questions that you have in the chat. Are you ready? I'm ready. Hello, welcome to this video where I will show you how to make API requests with JavaScript. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create a file. We'll just do an index.html. We'll create a basic HTML file, and we're going to call this app Random Dogs. And for this app, we are going to use Bulma, which is a CSS framework. So I'm on the Bulma website, and I am just going to grab the CSS. Let's see, here it is. And actually, I want to add that link at the bottom of the head. And then we need like a basic layout. So first, let's look at components. I want like a nav bar. So let's grab a nav bar. Something very simple like this should do. Let me put that right there. I don't want that menu on the side. I don't want an image. I'm just going to have a nice little dog emoji. That one, like that. And it's just going to link to the page itself. Cool. So in this directory, I'm going to start up light server, which is just a static file server that automatically refreshes when things change. So we can see that I have the nav bar. It's not a different color though, so I can't really see it. Let's see if there are other colors that I can use. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I want like this dark one. I think I can actually just do navbar is dark. Let's see what we get. Hey, we have a navbar. Cool. And so what I want also is just a little section on the page that will say, welcome to Random Dogs. Click this button to view Random Dogs. So let's see. Do we have like a Jumbotron or something like that? Layout. Hero. I think that's the one I want. Yeah, something like this. And we'll do it. I like this color. So I'm just going to grab that section. That's going to go right below the nav. I'm going to create a main section that will have that. And it's going to say Random Dogs. Welcome to Random Dogs. Click go to see some random dogs. All right, let's see what we got. Not bad. So now I want a button that just says go that the user can click on. So let's go over here. Let's go to components. Let's grab a button. Maybe it's under elements. Button. Yeah, I want a button. I want a nice big button. Yeah, look at that large button. Yeah, I guess I don't want it to be full width though. Well, I'll just copy that button. And then below this section, I probably want like a div. I'm going to add that button. We'll say go. And then I can add a class to it to give it a color. Let's give it the success. So is success, which will make it green. So that should give me a button. It's all the way on the left. I want to center it, and I want to give it a little bit of margin on top. I believe there are like helpers? Responsive helpers? I'm curious. So I know with Bootstrap, I can do something like margin top 2. Can I do that with Bulma? I cannot. Let's see. Layout. This is a quick project, right? Yeah. So after I get this layout, it's going to be totally fine. It's going to be great. Okay, I don't know exactly how that's going to work, so I'm just going to create my own custom class. So I'm just going to call this button section. And then up at the top here, below where I brought in that CDN, I'm going to add a style tag, and we're just going to style that button section. And I'm going to say margin top is 2 rems, and text align is center. And let's see what we get. There we go. So I want to click this button. I want to get some random dogs, and then I want to see them on the page. So we have set up the client. Very good. Now we need to make an API request with JavaScript. So for this, we're going to be using the dog API. You can find it at dog.ceo/dog-api. And they have a lot of different endpoints. And so each of these different endpoints allow us to get different data about dogs. So they have an endpoint called list all breeds. And if we make a request to this endpoint, we're going to get back this data. You can see it's JSON data, JavaScript object notation, which gives us a bunch of different dog breeds. They also have an endpoint where I can get a random dog image. And you can see that that has a URL. And they also have an endpoint where I can get a number of random dog images. And this is the one that I'm going to use. So basically, I can use JavaScript to request the data from this URL. And then once I get the data back, I can then use that in my page. And just as an example, because all of these endpoints work off of GET requests, I can actually test them in my browser. So if I take that URL and just paste it in and hit enter, that sends a GET request to this dog API server, and then I get back the response. And we can see that the response has a message property with an array with multiple images, and I can now potentially use that in my application. So I'm going to make a request to this very URL. So here's what we'll do. We'll create a new file. We'll call it app.js. I'm going to create a variable called API URL, and I'm going to put that URL inside of there. Cool. Now let's make the request with JavaScript. So for this, I'm actually going to create a function called like get random dogs. So let's create a function, get random dogs. And inside of this function is where I'll actually make a request to get the random dogs. Let's take a quick stretch. That's my break timer. And now we can make the request. So for this request, I'm going to use something called fetch. Now, fetch is built into all modern web browsers, and it allows us to make API requests with JavaScript. So here's what I'll do. I'm just going to say fetch, and I'm going to pass in that API URL. So it's going to make, by default, a GET request to that URL. And then I want to do something with the response. So API requests are known as, or are asynchronous, meaning they don't complete immediately, right? They take some time. And you can see that if I open a new tab, paste this in, and hit enter, it doesn't come back immediately. It takes a few seconds, right? It has to go through the tubes of the internet, get that data, and then bring it back to me. So it takes some time. So to help with that, in JavaScript, we can use this thing called async await. So I'm going to set this function as an async function, and then I'm going to await or wait on the response. And I want to store that response in a variable. So I'll say response equals await fetch against that URL. And then now that I've gotten the response, I know that this API returns JSON data. So I need to actually parse the response as JSON. So for that, I can say JSON equals await response.json. Now, similar to making the API request, so making the API request is an asynchronous thing. It returns a promise, which is why we have to await it. And parsing it as JSON is also an asynchronous thing. It returns a promise, so we have to await it. But now that I've awaited those two things, I should be able to log the JSON, and we should see that data in our console. So now that I have this file, let's go to our index.html. I'm going to add a script tag down here at the bottom. We'll say source equals app.js. And now nothing will happen because I haven't called my function. So just to see it happening, when the page loads, we'll call this function. It should make an API request, get back the data, and then log it to the console. So let's see what happens. I'll open up the DevTools, and there's an object there. And if I look at it, it has a message property, and that has dogs in it, and it has a status of success. So we have successfully made that API request, and it now lives inside of our JavaScript, and we can do something with it, which is great. Great. There's a question from Andrew. What part of JSON.parse needs await? Excuse me. Whew, sorry. But it's specifically the API for the response object that comes back from fetch. It will potentially parse the JSON as a background task rather than doing it in the foreground like JSON.parse. All right, let's keep going. So if we look at our checklist, we made the API request with JavaScript. Easy enough. But now, how do we actually get to that data? So we can see when we log it in the console, I'll refresh, we log it in the console, this is an object, and it has a message property, right? And I want to get access to that message property. So because this is an object, I can use dot notation. So in my JavaScript, if I were to log JSON.message, now I get just the array. So because the API returned an object that has properties on it, I can access those properties. And in this particular case, it had a message property. So I could say .message. When you're talking to APIs, they may have other properties. And basically, you'll have to use those properties to get at the data. So now, JSON.message is an array of images. And that's what I actually want to add to the page. Very good. So in our objectives, determine how to get the data from the response. We've done that. We logged it to the console. We looked at the properties. We figured out that the message property is the one that we want. Now we can add the data to the page. So here's what I want to do actually, just really quick before I use JavaScript to add it all to the page. I'm going to add it manually just so I can figure out what HTML I need, and then I'll know what HTML I need to generate when I need to add it to the page. So there's a dog image. Let's figure out in Bulma how we're actually going to show this on the page. Let's look at components. Maybe we want like a card. Yeah, I think we'll use like a card with an image on it. Let's do this. So in my HTML, below the button, I'm going to create a div that has a class of random dogs. And for now, I am actually going to write the HTML that does it, but then we're going to do it dynamically based on the response. So let's grab this div class card. We're going to put that right there. And let's see what we get. Cool, so we get one really big card. I kind of want it to be 3 columns, so let's look at their layout. We can do layout. And actually, what is a media object? That might be what we want. That's not what we want. Columns, basics. I think this is what we want. We want to basically create a layout that has 3 columns because we're going to have 3 random dogs. So I'm going to do something like this. So inside of my div class random dogs, I'm going to have a bunch of columns. Let's see what that does for us. Cool, that works. So now instead of having like first, second, third column, I'm actually going to have this card inside of that column. So let me take this card. And then let's just make that the first column. And then I only want 3 columns, so let's get rid of that 4th column. Let's see what we get. We should see, yeah, there's 1 column, 2 column, 3 column. So this is kind of getting what we want. Now, if I look back at this card that we copied, we don't really have any content. So I'm just going to delete the content. And we really just have an image. So let's see what that does. Yeah, I think that's all we want. So basically, we're going to have 3 of these. Div class column, div class column, and div class column. And that gives us 3 columns, but now we're actually going to dynamically add them to the page and actually set their image to be the image that we got back from the API. So let me get rid of all those. So basically, this div class column is the thing that I want to recreate and add dynamically to the page. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give this parent container called random dogs. It now has the class columns. And what I'm going to do dynamically with JavaScript is once I get that data back from the API, we're dynamically going to add 1 column, 2 column, 3 column by iterating over that array. So we're going to do that all dynamically. Here we go. So, but right now we have a totally empty div, has a class of columns. So first thing I need is I need to get a reference to this div so that I can append things to it. So let's do that in my JavaScript. Up at the top, I'm going to create a variable called random dogs element. And we'll say element equals document.query selector. And we'll say the thing with the class random dogs. So this line of code here will get a reference to this element called random dogs, and it stores it in a variable, so now we can append things to that variable. And if you remember, JSON.message is an array, right? It's an array of 3 things. So we will essentially need to iterate over this array and add a new column to each one. So really, that HTML code that I copied is kind of what we want to recreate, but we need to do that with JavaScript. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say json.message.forEach. Now, because message is an array, we can use forEach to iterate over it. And we'll say for each dog image, we want to do something with it. And essentially what we want to do is we want to recreate this element using JavaScript and then append it to the page. So let's start at the top. Let's create an element called column element. And that's going to be document.create element. We want a div, and then that div needs to have the class column. So we'll say column element dot class list dot add column. All right, good so far. Now inside of that, we want to have a div with the class card. So we'll say card element equals document dot create element, and we want to create a div, and then we want to say card element dot class list dot add card. So we're going to add the card class. So at this point, we're here. Now that we've created the card, we actually want to append that card to the column element so that the card is inside of the column element. So we're going to say column element dot append child card element. There we go. Now we need to create that div with the class card image. So we'll say const card image element equals document.create element. We want to create a div, and that div has a class of card image. I still love you, Boyan. I'm just trying to get this done. Okay, so we need to set the card image class name. So we'll say card image element class list.add. We want to add the card image class. Cool. Now we want to take this element that we created and append it to the card element. So here we'll say card element dot append child card image element. Okay, we're almost there. We're very close. At this point, we have recreated this structure, right? Now we need to create the figure element. So we'll say figure element, and that's going to be document.create element. We want to create a figure. We're going to add 2 classes to it. So we'll say figure element dot class list dot add image. And we also want to add the is 4x3 class. So we'll say figure element dot class list dot add is 4x3. Yeah, and so there's a question from Andrew. Is that figure actually necessary? I think it has to do with the layout of the card and this like is 4x3 class. Though actually, I think that's going to change the it could change the aspect ratio. I'm actually going to leave off the is 4x3. I'm going to do that. And then we take that figure element and we need to append it to the card image. So we'll say we'll say card image element dot append child figure element. Okay, so we're here, and finally we can create the image. So we'll say const image element, and that's going to be document.create element image. And this image element, we need to set the source attribute. So we'll say image element dot src equals, and here we can just say dog image, because json.message is an array of image URLs. Dog image is going to be an image URL, and this is where we want to set the source of that image. Now we can say image element needs to be appended to the figure. So we'll say figure element dot append child image element, like so. And then lastly, we need to take this column element here and append it to the random dogs element. So we've recreated this structure using JavaScript, and now we'll say random dogs element dot append child card element, or sorry, is it column element? Because we want to append this entire structure that we just created. So we're going to append the column element. And if I've done everything correctly, when the page loads, we get 3 random dogs. Great. One thing I wanted, though, is I don't want those images to show up until we click the Go button. So what I'll do is I'll add an event listener to this button. So when we click it, then we make the request. So instead of calling this function when the page loads, we need to get a reference to that button, which is right here. Let's give it a class of Go button. And now that we've given it a class of Go button, we can then reference it in our JavaScript. So I'm going to say Go button is document.query selector, the element with the class Go button. And then I want to listen for when the user clicks on that button. So down here, I'm going to say Go button.add event listener. I want to listen for the click event. And when it's clicked, I want to call the get random dogs function. So I can just take this function name, pass it right here. And now, when the page loads, we shouldn't see anything. But if I click this button, we should get 3 random dogs. And if I click it again, we get more random dogs. And if I click it again, we get even more random dogs. So one thing I need to do is every time I call this function, I need to clear all of the previous results. So that way they're totally replaced. So here's what I'll do. Whenever we call get random dogs, I'm just going to say random dogs element dot inner HTML equals nothing. So we're just going to blank it out. So that way when we add the 3 new dogs, they'll be the only things on the page. Now let's take a quick stretch. I'll answer a few questions in the chat, and then I think we're done with this example. So refresh the page, click Go. 3 random dogs, click Go. It empties out. Then we see 3 random dogs. Click Go. There we go. Random dogs all day long. Very good. All right, let me catch up on the chat. Dogs and no to-dos in the same tutorial. Yeah, it was supposed to be quick. So it took me 17 minutes because I started it. Yeah, it was 17 minutes. Now, I don't know if anyone mentioned it, but you might have thought I was crazy when I created all of these elements manually. And I think one thing I'll show, and I'll keep this in the tutorial, is technically you don't have to do all of this. This was a lot of work, right, to get all those elements. Technically, we could just set the HTML of an element to be this using a template string, and it would kind of work the same way. I'm going to show that because it's actually a lot easier. The only issue with that is you potentially open yourself up to cross-site scripting if you just set inner HTML and then put the value you got back from the API right here. So, yeah. Thanks for the YouTube sub, Andrew. Leave. What? You're welcome, Raul. Hopefully it helps. And in the future, I'm going to try to do a more in-depth stream. I'm going to try to explain a lot more stuff. Thanks for the follow, Spyware HR. The internet tubes. Yeah. Be polite when you ask for data. Please give me that data. Yeah, and so where React Review would come in handy is you don't have to manually create all of the elements like this. You can really just use a template and then bind it. I'll show you can technically do that with vanilla JavaScript, but it doesn't have sanitization or anything else like that. VS Code is very nice. I like it. It supports a lot of extensions that I like to use. That's why I like it. Use IDs. Raul was here. Yeah. Thanks for the YouTube sub, Gaurav. Yeah, I still love you all. You know it. And thanks for the follow, Rulan. Thanks, Evan Yu, for Vue.js, so I don't have to code 10,000 lines of code to do what I want. It's so true. Yeah. Carolinda says, can you do for each on an array inside another for each of that same array, basically looping for eaches? You can. I don't know if you would want to. Yeah. Because that essentially creates like a nested loop, but it would be interesting to see the problem that you're trying to solve. Yeah. You're welcome, J Fellyweb. Josh is saying you can add both of the classes at once. .add accepts in args. Oh, that's good to know. I'll say that really quick. Where did I do that? Oh, I only ended up adding one class. Actually, I just want to see really quick what would happen if I did add the is 4x3. Is 4x3. Yeah, it like scales it weird because it tries to resize it. Yeah, like that image was definitely supposed to be taller. So I guess I don't have to mention that because I only added one class. Is Bulma easily customizable? Yeah, so I mean you can actually download the SAS source code and like highly customize like the default colors and different stuff like that. Yeah. I tried to do some for each, then filter inside the for each. I got nothing. So you should remember that for each doesn't return anything. It just iterates over the array. Filter returns a new array. So you would potentially have to say dot filter and store that result in a variable to get the results. Why not use template strings? Yeah, mainly because it opens you up to cross-site scripting if you don't sanitize the things that you're putting into it. Ideally, you would fetch and start loading images before pressing the button, right? How do you load the image without showing it? We could. I kind of like the idea of making the request when the button is clicked, though. I'll add a loading spinner for sure. Let me do that. A book to learn JavaScript. So you can try Eloquent JavaScript, which is totally free. You can read it online. There's also You Don't Know JS, which is also a book series that you can buy the print copy, but you can also read it for free online. And if you want to pay for a book, JavaScript for Kids is actually really good, even if you're not a kid. Is this? That's not it. It's a book by No Starch Press. That's the one. Yeah, JavaScript for Kids. You could probably find the PDF online, but this is a really good introduction to JavaScript, even if you're not a kid. So check those out. And thanks for the follow, Majan. You're welcome, J Phillyweb. Have a good night. Yeah. Yeah, go for it, Carolinda. No worries. Loading images. That's unfortunate. All right, I kind of have to go, but I want to do like 2 last things on this app, and then I'm going to go. Okay, where were we? Okay. So we've gotten it working. We're adding things to the page, but I want to show one more way that you could do this. That's actually a whole lot less code. So you can see here, basically I recreated this this DOM structure using create element and appending child, but we had to create a lot of variables. But one thing you could do, and I'll show you this right now, is you can take this HTML and create an element and just set its inner HTML, or actually, whoa! Filter and Lala with the raid. Thank you so much. Welcome. That was actually really loud for me. Welcome to the stream. I'm gonna end soon actually, but I'm finishing up like a little tutorial thing. So yeah. I'm gonna start that over because I'm gonna edit this into a separate video. Okay, so you can see here that we have basically recreated this DOM structure using variables in JavaScript. And it's a lot of code. But one thing I'll show is you can actually do this with a lot less code, but there are some implications. But let me show that. So basically, I could comment out all of this code that I wrote, and instead, let's say we just want to append some HTML to the randoms dogs element. So I could say random dogs element dot inner HTML plus equals a template string, and then I can put my HTML string inside of there. And then the thing I need to change is this URL right here. So I need to change this to be dog image. And we'll get rid of that is4by3 class. We'll get rid of this comment here. And this will actually work in exactly the same way. So basically what we do is we iterate over the array of images, and then for each image, we add some HTML to that dogs element, which is that HTML there. And this should work. So if we go back to the browser, where are we? So if we go back to the browser and click go, it still works, but with a lot less code. But one thing I'll mention is if you're doing this, you potentially open yourself up to cross-site scripting, which is where you potentially might inject scripts into the page. So if you're talking to an API that you trust and you know you're not going to get bad data back from, you could probably do this. But the issue is, what if dog image was like a script tag or something malicious, and you're just adding the HTML to the page? That would not be a good thing. Whereas when we manually created each element, there isn't really a way for that code to run. So that's one way to do it. One last thing I'm going to do is basically show a loading spinner when you've made the request, and then hide the loading spinner when the request is done. So if we take a look at Bootstrap, and let's go to Elements, Progress Bar, sorry, not Bootstrap, Bulma. If we take a look at Bulma, we want an indeterminate progress bar. Let's try this one. Let's just see what it looks like. I'm going to add it to the HTML. Let's put it right about here. Wait, is that the right one? Oh, okay, yeah. So 60% because it's about that width. All right, so if we go here, there it is. Cool. I want there to be a little bit of room. So I'm just going to, again, create a new class. Let's just call this MT2. This will have a margin top of 2 rims. And then let's put this, actually, let's just give it an overall margin of 2 rim. And then we're going to put this progress bar in a div. So it has a little bit of space around it. So we'll have a div. We're going to put that progress bar in there. And then we'll give it a class of, what did we call it? Let's just call it margin. So we'll give it a class of margin. We'll save it. And there we go. There's a little bit of breathing room. Cool. So what we want to do is when the page loads, we actually want to hide this loading spinner, and we only want to show it when we're actually making the API request. So in my JavaScript, I'll create a variable to hold the loading spinner. Loading element. We'll say document.querySelector, the thing with the class loading. And now that I thought of it, loading is a much better name for that class we created. So let's do that. Let's call this loading. And then we're going to call this element loading. So now this element has the loading class, and we've stored it in a variable. And when the page loads, we're just going to hide it. So when the page loads, we'll say loading element.style.display equals none. And by default, it should be gone. Cool. But when we make the request, we initially want to show it. So we're going to remove that. And then when the request is done, we're going to hide it again. So now, when I click go, we should see a spinner. And then we see some dogs. The spinner isn't there for very long. Try it again. It's not there for long enough. One thing technically I could do is like set a timeout before I hide it. That's okay. Basically, my internet is too fast and we're not seeing that loading spinner. I could slow my internet down though. Let's try that. So over here on my network tab, I can actually set this to like 3G speeds. And now it should be a little bit slower. So if I click go, we see it for a second, and then we see the images load. Very cool. So that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Ultimately, we set up a client app, we made an API request, we added that data to the page, we showed a loading spinner, and we allowed the user to actually load data multiple times. So thanks for watching. All right, I'll catch up on the chat, then I gotta go. I'm way over. I'm an hour over when I said I would be. And thanks again for the raid, Philtor and Lala. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, that was really loud. I think it's because the sound that I have set for raids are it's a different sound. But yeah, I don't know. Cool. Yeah, I said that, Boyan, but I'm gonna edit this video, so I said it again because the raid message was really loud. Cool. I've been working in Node.js. I'm terrified at starting adding web elements into it. Yeah, it's a thing. So part of the video that I'm doing today is I introduced this project yesterday, which is basically a challenge for anybody that wants to do it, where you can build a basic front-end website with 2 pages. It uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it contacts a third-party web API. So I'm in the process of creating short, small tutorials that would help you build a similar site. So that's what this was about. That's a good point, Carolina. Yeah, I know you were talking to Majestic Eye, but I always say this to people that are learning JavaScript. Like, if you don't understand basic for loops, you should not be using for each or filter. You really should be understand the basics of for loops. Hello, Cyprian. Welcome. Yeah, don't do template literals. Potentially dogs can hack you. That's a great point, Boyan. 100 push-ups a day? I can barely do like 5 push-ups. Cool. Yeah, first world problem. My internet is too fast. Majestic Guy says, what? I didn't know you could do that. I think we were talking about the toggling my internet speed. Yeah, it's pretty cool for testing because you can see like what does your site look like and how would it load on like we could do slow 3G too. The cool thing about that is it simulates a slow network for loading the images too. So if you watch this, it takes a while and then it has to actually load the images, which is pretty slow on a slow 3G connection. But yeah, that's cool for testing stuff. I see. Thank you, Roland, for tuning in. I appreciate that. And thanks for the follow, Mercs. Cool. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to teach you something, Majestic Eye. Hello, Campbell. When will the next one be? I'll probably reserve it for this weekend, and I'll probably schedule it because I know today there weren't a lot of questions around this kind of stuff, and I kind of want to do some planning because there are a lot of tutorials and videos I want to make, and as you can see today, I kind of just like ad hoc did it on the fly. It doesn't always work out the best, but I think I'll probably stream Saturday and Sunday, and I'll have some actual content planned, and I'll plan ahead of time. Cool. It would be cool to have one of those load bars at the top, so like when the page is loading, we could probably do that. But okay, hello, John. But I gotta go. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Like I said, this is gonna be edited down into smaller videos. I'll stream again this weekend. Be sure to tune in then. Thanks again for the raid. And yeah, this was fun. I guess we should raid someone. We got some people's watching. Let's see who's streaming. Trevor Blades is live. We rated him the other day. He was working on a Gatsby app for a Battle of the Barracks, which is like a skateboarding competition. Let's see if there's any other live coders live. Ooh, that's creepy crawly. Playing games. Talk to me, Gooseman. What's he working on? React, Redux, Rails.
Yeah, info isn't coming in. That could be it. Maybe we're not sending the request because the drawer won't open till
Yeah, we're gonna raid Talk to Me Gooseman. So if you're watching on YouTube and you want to raid with us, go to twitch.tv/codinggarden. Talk to Me Gooseman. So if you're watching on... just a second. I'll share the link on YouTube. And I'll catch up on the chats, and then we'll do the raid. But he's working on React and Redux and Rails, so that might be fun to watch. But yeah, thanks Carolinda. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Majestic Eye. Glad to see you, Clayton. Hope all this stuff helps. See you later, Mattia. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, see you later, Sigurd. All right, if you're on YouTube, go to twitch.tv/codinggarden. We're gonna raid Talk to Me Gooseman. It's gonna be fun. Have a great night, Philtor. Thanks for the raid. We'll see you later. All right. See you later, Bob. See you later, Shiny Coffin. Here we go. Cool. Alrighty. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. Oh, wait, look at all those drops. Oh, that's a good one. CMJ made it on the leaderboard. CMRJ? Yeah, cool. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.